Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today's topic are the missing units, heroes and lords for the vampire counts. So without further ado, let's begin. The vampire count roster is mostly complete in terms of units. In truth, only a few remain. The majority of this list indeed will be mostly characters. But before we do that, let's look towards the missing units. Firstly, we have a reskin unit, that of the Graveguard with halberds. Currently, we have the Graveguard with sword and shield, and those with great weapons. It's not that generally needed, but it would be nice to have a viable late game unit with halberds for the vampire count roster. Next we have the Spirit Hosts. These are an ethereal unit which is on foot, if you can call it that, a slower version of the Hex Wraiths but more or less playing the exact same role. This could be classified as a tar pit unit, but also seeing as they're ethereal, they wouldn't be throwaway units and would probably be able to survive a few hits here and there. Moving on, we have the Incarnate Elemental of Death. So this is the Law of Death made manifest, which is only able to be summoned by those extremely talented practitioners of the Law of Death, many of which are actually vampires. It is said that the Incarnate emits a deathly vapor. Any who come in contact with it will have their flesh beginning to decay as their very life essence leaves them. The monster itself never had an official model but did have rules and they were quite powerful. Should the Incarnate ever be implemented into the game, it would require its own new model and more than likely would be treated as a titanic unit in the very similar sense as to the Dread Saurian. And lastly for our missing units is the Coven Throne. Coven Thrones are large war machines seen as mounts that carry a harem of vampires across the battlefield. This was essentially the only representation of a Lamian unit in the 8th edition army book and is a very highly requested unit and mount by the vampire count fans of the Total War Warhammer series. And you can't blame them really, it's one of the most visually appealing models in the army book for 8th edition and to be honest, I would like to see this here too. With that, we've looked towards all the possible missing units, but now let's look towards a missing mount, the Abyssal Terror. Abyssal Terrors are a rather interesting monstrous mount, seeing as no two are actually the same. Each Abyssal Terror is visually distinct because it takes the form of whatever the master wishes it to be. Abyssal Terrors could be living or dead, former chaotic monsters raised into undeath, or just a construct created by a necromancer as long as it serves its purpose. What is shown on screen right now is the generic look for the Abyssal Terrors, but they do vary quite drastically. I believe the reason why they haven't been added in yet is because of the lore stating that they do look quite different, but maybe this generic look could just work for it. This would be more or less the vampire count equivalent to a manticore mount, essentially. And while many of the vampires already have a decent amount of mounts, a monstrous mount like this might be quite cool, especially if it's not as large as a zombie dragon. You could use it in the same way as you mount a Chaos Lord and a manticore. Fast, efficient, go in, do your damage, and get out as fast as you can. I almost forgot we'd also have a special Regiment of Renown unit, that of the Black Grail Knights, 12 Grail Knights who unfortunately fell into darkness and were converted into undeath. It's established in the lore that there's only 12, so this would be a rather interesting Regiment of Renown unit should any vampire count lord be added in the lands of Bretonnia, such as the Red Duke, the Black Knight, or any other. There's only one remaining generic hero character left, that of the Cairn Wraith. This is just a hero version of the unit that we already have. It would be an assassin type character, ethereal, quite decent at melee combat, but that's pretty much it. However, as I remember them on the tabletop, more people fielded them as heroes as they did than units, and it would just be nice to have the option, really. We're going to move on to the named legendary characters, both heroes and lords. Now please bear in mind that I'm only going to be selecting a few of them here, mainly because if we actually went through all the named vampire count characters, this video would probably be around 4 to 5 hours long, considering that there are many vampire count characters established in the lore. First and most obvious would be the Red Duke himself. Yes, he's added into the Total War Warhammer series already, but he's not playable at the moment, and he's been hinted to be a possibility in the future to be a playable legendary lord. Now this character's army itself would be rather unique, considering that since he is based in the lands of Bretonnia, he would not only have access to the usual vampire count units, but possibly also a few of the Bretonnian ones with a reskin to make them look more, well, mutated, ghastly and so on. Here we'd see some basic peasant reskins, possibly the use of the trebuchet too, and maybe some knights turned into vampires. I think that would be rather cool, to be honest. Next, we'd look towards Neff Errata, the Queen of Lemire and the first of the vampires. She herself is a mighty spy master, with a network of spies that encase the whole of the known Warhammer world. She would be fairly decent in both melee damage and in magic, but it is through her ability to influence others through her spy network where she would really shine, maybe focusing around making other nations wage war against each other instead of her actively seeking the battle herself. Next we have Konrad von Karstein, the Mad Dog of Sylvania. Yeah, I know a lot of people are kinda sick of von Karsteins, but this is the best one in my opinion. While all others from the von Karstein family are mostly scheming and plotting against each other, Konrad takes a more physical approach. He is completely and utterly insane, and he has no time to scheme. He'd rather rip out a throat than just spend his time talking about petty politics. Actions speak louder than words, and I completely agree. Now, whilst technically he's dead at this point of the timeline, so are Vlad and Isabella, and they're already playable in Total War Warhammer, so why not Konrad too? Following up, we have Yusharon, the king of the Strigoi and Neff Errata's younger brother. Yes, this is another character that is dead in the timeline at this point, but if they're going to add in Neff Errata, it would make sense for them to add in her little brother for a little friendly rivalry. Well, not so friendly to be honest, they outright hated each other, but yeah. This character's looking rather likely recently as the vampire counts have been given a new territory within the Eye of the Vortex campaign, and, well, it does belong to him. There are a few other choices in terms of Ghoul Kings, for example Vorag, but I don't know, it just seems better to have one of the original bloodline vampires there. The same could be said about Wersuran, who is the father of the Nekrach bloodline. Now this is another character that's been long dead in terms of lore, well physically at least, as his spirit has lived on within the bodies of his apprentices, but it just makes more sense to me here to bring in each original vampire from each respective bloodline, as they're all rather iconic in terms of lore. However, I do believe it is also possible that we'll see Zacharias the Ever-Living instead. He is one of the very few vampires not of the Blood Dragon bloodline who is free from the Thirst of Blood. While Zacharias is a vampire from the Nekrach Brotherhood, it's not like he's actually very weak. He's actually quite powerful both magically and physically, as he rides atop a zombie dragon that he himself drained from blood. This is what cured his bloodthirst and what empowered him physically. And lastly we look to Aborash, the first of the Blood Dragons. This is a rather interesting character because he was the one who discovered on how to quench the bloodthirst. Not only that, but this vampire is rather honourable and does not waste his time to spill blood pointlessly. He will seek out worthy adversaries and only duel them if he thinks they'll present to be some sort of challenge. In some cases, should these adversaries prove to be quite talented, he won't kill them outright, but rather recruit them into his order of blood dragons. Many years ago, this masterful blood dragon swore an oath of fealty to Gilles de Breton and to the people of Bretonia, promising to fight alongside them should the need ever come. This oath was fulfilled during the end times where Gilles Le Breton had returned and Bretonia was in need of allies. This proves that this vampire is very different from all the others. He knows loyalty, honor and valor. This is one of the very few vampires in the history of Warhammer Fantasy battles that knows this, and this is why I believe he should be a playable legendary lord. Now naturally these are just my picks, and if you guys think there's any others that you would see in the list, or any that would be replacing any that I mentioned, let me know in the comments below. And while I would have wanted to cover every single possible vampire count, it is important to note that we already have, what, 5 playable ones already? So it's not like we could end up with 30 playable vampire count characters, because that would be a tad excessive, and you could just imagine the forums being filled with there's too many vampires, there's too many vampires, there's too many vampires. Also, I'd like to note that the reason why I didn't mention Nagash, the Morghas, and any other possible Motarchs, barring Neff Errata and a few others, is because I think that they don't really generally fall under the whole vampire count roster at this point. I see them falling under a Legions of Nagash army where you'd see Nagash, his Motarchs, his Morghas, and units from the Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, and maybe possibly the Vampire Coast too? But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion, shall we? But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below, we have various different social media links such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team, talk to us about Total War, Warhammer, or just anything really. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could get loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Purchasing using this link and also using our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons, your support means the world to us. Honestly, it's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to our patrons Gibraltar LUSC and Ryan Bertsche for subscribing to us at our Fane level. Honestly, you guys are super cool. And a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, the channel's been growing a lot lately and it's all thanks to you guys. Without you, the great book would be nothing. We're trying to implement more videos into the channel soon, but we're getting stuff done outside of YouTube at the moment, just like artwork and so on for the channel. It's just taking a little while to get everything to look to a standard that we feel is cool. Honestly guys, thank you so much for all the support lately, it's been amazing. But with that my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.